Hey, Hedgies. I have at this point figured out, and I really want to share it with you, what stresses writers out. It is the stakes that we make for ourselves. Like we make it very high stakes based on the success metrics we have. What you define as success is where your stress will go. Success metrics are so important in the entrepreneurship life. And what I mean by that is we know where to put our attention based on what the metrics tell us. I do this for Quill and Cup, how many members we have, how many people show up to Prickles, what events are more popular than not, where are the questions being asked, what questions are being asked, which posts have the most likes and the most engagement. And this is all very important information. And for the most part, we do get really good at measuring the obvious ones, like word count, like scenes edited. We get very good at measuring how many books we sold or didn't sell. How many people opened the email? How much money did you make? Did you hit the deadline? These are all very measurable outcomes. And those metrics matter. Of course they do. They tell us a lot of important information. But I would love for us to get into the habit of looking at the metrics sitting next to them too. For example, you had your best month of book sales ever. Amazing. How was your stress level? You wrote more words this month than you ever have before. Amazing. How much did you sleep? You launched the thing. You finished the draft. You showed up to every prickle that you said you were going to show up to, and you hit the goal. What did it cost you? And I don't mean that to dissuade you from being successful, but there is almost always a cost to a benefit. Sometimes we knowingly choose it. I do this with Quill and Cup all the time. I've noticed that I tend to go really hard on a project for 2 to 3 weeks. I'm excited, I'm focused, I'm spending a lot of my creative energy there. And then I need to recharge, sometimes for almost the same amount of time. And the mistake wouldn't necessarily be going hard for those 2 or 3 weeks. Sometimes that's exactly what I want to do. That is what is lighting me up, what is getting me excited. The mistake would be pretending it didn't cost me anything and then expecting myself to maintain that pace indefinitely. That is unrealistic. That is unsustainable. I was actually thinking about this while bowling the other day. I am certainly not an expert bowler, but I noticed that my ball was hardly getting above 17 miles per hour. I don't know what that means. Was that average? Was that slow? I don't know. Meanwhile, the person in the lane next to me was absolutely launching his, way faster than mine. But I was getting more strikes. I knocked all the pins down. And I remember thinking, he's expending more energy and getting fewer pins. Because speed wasn't actually the metric that mattered. And I think we do this with our writing all the time. We think that speed equals success. We think more words means more successful. More hours means more committed. More books sold means the launch went better. I hesitated that. I think I believe that. More productivity means that we're doing this right. But what if you slowed down long enough to ask, what am I actually trying to knock down here? Maybe 500 intentional words move your story forward more than 2,000 words you rush through exhausted. Maybe taking an afternoon to stare at your reverse outline means you write less this week, but you save yourself from rewriting 6 chapters next month. Maybe the successful metric this week isn't word count at all. Maybe it's figuring out what your protagonist actually wants. We spend so much time thinking about this in the 180 program, and I swear it moves the needle forward faster. Maybe your success is sleeping 8 hours. Maybe it's realizing you're creatively depleted and actually doing something about it. You get to choose where you spend your energy. And sometimes you might decide, caveat, you get to choose where you spend your energy. And for those of us who have a lot of responsibilities, that's going to be required of us. We're going to have to do those things. But that's not a bad thing. That is part of our writer lives. That is part of our writing experience right now, part of our season. And so, like, let's do those things joyfully. Let's attend to our kids joyfully. Let's figure out a way to show up to our jobs and do the best that we can, because we were hired for that job. Somebody trusted us to do a good job. So do that well. Sometimes you might decide, yep, this matters enough to me that I'm willing to pay the cost. I'm willing to spend less time writing because I need to do this project at work really well so that I can keep a roof over my head. But anything more than that, if it starts to become like a compulsion that like I have to be best at my job and I don't feel safe, like that's a red flag, right? I'm not your therapist, so I can't tell you that, but like that's something to look into. Can you give yourself an hour a week to work on your writing, right? What is the cost? Maybe the cost is less Netflix. Maybe the cost is less scrolling. Maybe the cost is not going out that night, but actually hunkering down in to think about your story. What is the cost? Stay up late finishing the chapter once in a while. Go hard on the launch. Spend the weekend building the thing you're excited about. Can you see how this is kind of like, this is really nuanced? So much depends on you and your energy and how you operate and how you get the expression of your creativity out into the world. But know ultimately what you're spending and then commit to rebalancing, commit to recharging, reset. You cannot measure success by the benefit while completely ignoring the cost. Because ultimately, the writer comes before the writing. The writer cannot do the writing if the writer is not well. So when you're looking at your metrics this week, don't just ask, what did I accomplish? Ask yourself, how did I feel while I was accomplishing it? Ask, what did it cost me? And was that cost worth it? And if it was, what do I need to replenish right now? Sometimes the most successful thing you can do next isn't throw the ball harder or faster. It's to slow down, aim, and make the energy you're spending actually count.